So there was a recent video on the Jubilee YouTube channel titled "Do All Vegans Think the Same?" where they got a group of vegans together, asked them a bunch of questions, and basically just had a discussion about their different viewpoints. It's a big channel, over 4 million subs, and the video itself has over 1 million views in a little under 2 weeks. So a lot of people have seen this. I thought it would be interesting to sort of put myself into this conversation and give you my thoughts on how I would answer these questions. So we're going to get right into it, and you'll notice that I am going to be wearing a different shirt because I recorded the responses at a different time. So there you go.
You can be vegan for reasons other than ethical. 3, 2, 1.
I guess it's just like in the definition. Veganism is a way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as practicable and possible, all forms of animal exploitation and cruelty to animals for any reason, clothing, food. It's about animals being ethical for them.
I didn't become vegan with any sort of ethical reasoning in mind. I just was very sick all the time, and I just had an inclination that if I stopped eating animal byproducts that I would feel better, and I did. And all the ethical reasons came as a result of me looking at my health and seeing that change. I definitely have stayed vegan because of ethical reasons, but I became vegan for my health.
I became vegan for health reasons, but I think the end goal of veganism is animal liberation. So I feel like that's more plant-based when you're vegan for health or vegan for something else, because at the end of the day, we seek to use products that have no animals in them at all.
The reason why I went vegan was for the environment. Climate change is real. You could do more good for the environment by being vegan than giving up your car, which is insane. I guess the ethics came afterwards, which is why I agree with you guys. I feel like we both think the same things, but why I started wasn't for ethics, which is why I'm here.
So I think this is just a bit of a semantics game here. Yes, technically speaking, veganism is an ethical position. Most people associate veganism just with diet, though, and in that sense, you could follow a plant-based or vegan diet simply for your health, or because of environmental factors, which in its own way is somewhat of an ethical stance. And sometimes it's these other avenues that get people through the door. And as they pointed out, when they become more educated, they stay vegan for the ethical reasons. So I missed the Instagram post, but I would agree on this one. All right, next.
I will not buy or cook non-vegan items for loved ones. 3, 2, 1.
This one's tough because I've bought like a chicken burrito for my brother. He would go get it anyway, and that's maybe not the best way to go about it. Maybe I should deter him, but the way I try to promote my diet is just by being an example and not by forcing it into someone else, because I just think that if maybe I had bought a vegan burrito, he would just be resentful of veganism even more because he didn't get what he wanted.
Buying it or preparing animal products or anything that's not vegan for somebody is enabling them to fund the very oppression that I'm against. Like for me, I've taken the liberation pledge. So I'll refuse to eat at a table where people are eating animal products. In my mind, it's the same thing as if you're eating a dog or a child in front of me. You're not gonna wanna stay at that table and be with that. You're gonna wanna try to change those people.
Okay, so if you're gonna try to change people, don't you think it'd be beneficial to sit with them, because then you could expose them to your point of view?
So actually, every single person that I've told the Liberation Pledge about, they've had no problem changing their meals and going to vegan restaurants with me. If you care about me as a person, how could you not change one meal?
My approach is leading by example, right? All of my family knows You're not going to come to my house and bring any animals in or ask me to prepare it. But I do a lot of cooking. So I think what has brought me a lot of joy is like taking everything that I know my family loves to eat and veganizing it. And I've seen like my mom, my dad, and my brother, who I never thought would go vegan in a million years, go vegan. And I do know that if I would have had the approach of like judging them or, coming too aggressive, it would not have been met with love or understanding at all. Not forcing it on them, it has actually helped them come over to the dark side.
I would have to put myself in the agree spot here. I agree with Elizabeth on the idea of being with people consuming animal products is how you could more practically change them. Talk to them, right? Like, we know that vegans already have this holier-than-thou stereotype that's perpetuated about them. And so even though it may make you uncomfortable, as an individual, you have to see the greater good, the greater potential, completely avoiding people who consume animal products. Even though it pisses you off, probably isn't going to bring about any change. It's just going to make you the odd one out, and you'll be in your little vegan bubble by yourself. And though I have an interesting perspective because I've actually worked in a butcher shop as a vegan. It's my father's business, and I introduced a line of vegan products there. And I spoke with people about the health benefits predominantly because you just have to know your audience. You're not going to have likely a bunch of people rushing into a butcher shop that are going to ethically give up animal products. But this even goes back to the last question. You sort of can get them in the door, get them to reduce their meat consumption. And I actually befriended a long-time 35-plus year vegan who comes in and buys the stuff, and she loves what I'm doing. And she understands that sometimes you have to bring about change from the inside. And talk to people, like what Elizabeth was saying. So I don't purchase products, any animal products for family members. I have in the past made little baskets for Mother's Day and Father's Day for my parents, and everything's always vegan. Maybe some dark chocolate because I like that. But if we're having some sort of big family get-together where a bunch of people are eating, I will prepare some vegan stuff for myself and some extra for everybody else just so that they can see that vegan food's awesome. All right, next.
You are still vegan if you allow yourself an exception. 3, 2, 1.
Where do you draw the line then, I guess? Like, you're bending your own morals every once in a while. It's the same thing with, like, meatless Mondays. Like, we don't have, like, homophobic free Tuesdays. Like, it's every day is homophobia free, right? So, like, it's the same thing for me. If, like, you slip up, it's like saying, like, oh, yeah, I just am, like, totally fine with certain amounts of exploitation if I'm doing it.
Say you're traveling and it's genuinely hard to find like vegan food. You can't like survive on like just like lettuce all the time. And in certain like cultures, like say like China, like it's really hard to find something without meat.
I've grown up in different countries and surrounded by different cultures, and we live in a place where veganism is almost mainstream and it's super accessible, but there's developing countries where that's just not the case.
Even though like Beyond Burgers, Gardein, like those aren't accessible worldwide, we have fruits and vegetables everywhere. And like, I don't want to just tell everyone to only like
There's food
basic
deserts
plants,
though, and in
but-
food deserts that's not necessarily always true. Because I've been in these situations where it's just not really a sustainable option to feed yourself 100% vegan.
Is it more of like a convenience thing? Or is it more of a like, it's really, there's literally nothing available. There's not a banana or an apple or a bean.
I spent 3 months near the Arctic Circle in Iceland. And in Iceland, their diet is just, it's such a cold climate. It's all like sheep, fish, it's really dairy. Because
But they don't
that's
have
what
any
the
fruits or
land,
vegetables out there whatsoever at all?
the climate doesn't allow for that unless you're building greenhouses, which, is like how they're moving. But in remote villages where there's only 20 people, you can forage flowers to make tea and like little berries here and there, but that doesn't sustain people for the kind of climate that they experience.
So this one I'm going to have to disagree with. Like Richard said, where do you draw the line? The keyword here is allow. So does that mean you're allowing yourself to intentionally cheat? Because that's a big thing. No, you're not vegan if you say, you know what, today I'm going to have a steak. But if you're making an honest effort and something goes wrong, like you misread a label, now that's something that I would give myself a break on, because what else am I supposed to do? It does no good to beat myself up over it. I think, too, they're mostly talking about people with the financial and logistical means to actually go vegan. When people bring up remote areas, it's like, I don't really think most of these people are worrying about being vegan. They have separate issues, which we can deal with separately. Um, Richard does come off a bit ignorant about food deserts here. Again, I think it's not as relevant because there are so many people with the means to be vegan who aren't, and we could focus more attention on them. Dealing with food deserts is a separate thing, and the government should step in and subsidize healthy plant foods instead of the garbage that they currently do, which would benefit humans and non-human animals alike. Though to be fair, the definition does say as far as possible and practicable, reduce animal suffering. So you could argue that the situation were dire enough that someone could break but still be vegan. For example, Uruguayan Flight 571, which crashed in the Andes in 1972, there were survivors who resorted to cannibalism. And now, I would argue that if any of them were vegan, which is unlikely, but if any of them were vegan, they would get a pass here from me. They had to do that to survive, and they didn't cause the deaths of those who perished. There was no other food. You could even argue that the idea of not eating the deceased would be exploitation of those who could potentially survive. And in that case, it would not be vegan to not resort to cannibalism. I'm rambling a little bit here. So, I would say for myself, my current situation, and for most other people who identify as vegan, knowingly cheating would be okay. Alright, next one.
I've been bullied for being vegan. 3, 2, 1.
Where I come from, Orange County, is just a really nice place to be vegan. People really understand why people are vegan. Every now and then you get the, bro, you look like you need a hamburger, but I mean, it's not that bad.
I became vegan in 2006, and I didn't know anybody else who didn't eat meat or was vegan. Like, I got left out of like a lot of dinner plans and stuff like that with family and friends. They didn't want to pick somewhere that I could also eat at. They wanted to stay with what they wanted to eat. I don't think that I feel bullied for being vegan now, but when I first became vegan, I definitely did.
I get people who try to take like my blackness away. They'll say, you're not black if you're vegan. How can you be black and vegan? And it really does mess with your head. I'll get a lot of social media bullying to the point where sometimes it does affect my mental health just because I try to be a good person, but just someone finds out you're vegan and it's like the world hates you. And I think it's really easy to bully people online.
Somewhat surprised at the responses here. I would have to say I agree with the statement. Definitely have had jokes made about me, and usually you could say they're lighthearted, but when we're talking about the atrocities of animal farming, it's just not a joking matter. What Tyra said about people trying to take her blackness away hit home a little, because people have said the same thing about me and my Italian heritage. Honestly, most of the hate I get for being a vegan comes from right here on the internet, so there you go.
If you wear leather, you are not a vegan. 3, 2, 1.
I think if you consciously consume leather and buy it and wear it because you want to and you're conscious of that choice, then it's not vegan. But the way our society is structured, there's so many accidental cases in which you could be owning or wearing a vegan thing. Like you ride a bike, a lot of bike seats are leather, and it's hard to always know exactly what you're purchasing.
To me, it's like just not fair to the animals for us to like abuse our own ignorance and not actually take the time to research.
I think people do have excuses, especially in like poorer neighborhoods. They're working so much, they don't have the time to consciously go out and research about veganism. I think that's more of an issue that comes when you have more income and more choice. And I just want to say, yeah, by the way, this is fake leather. This is fake leather.
Don't tear them apart in the comments.
Yeah, please, guys.
I think it's really important though that we have a very clear message of what veganism is, because when we start to make excuses, then people who aren't vegan and are just learning about it, they have a confused message of what it is.
So, as uncomfortable as it may make some people, I think that Richard is mostly right here. The thing about the bike seats, I kind of empathize with a little bit. I mean, I have a bike that has a leather seat on it. I don't think it's necessarily practical to sort of get rid of the bike or, get rid of the seat prematurely. Of course, now, having purchased that bike prior to being vegan, whenever I go to replace it, I will switch to a vegan seat. And likewise, same goes for any other clothes that I may have that are not vegan currently. But yeah, I do agree that it sort of does send a poor message, and it kind of gives non-vegans an excuse to sort of string it out a little bit further. Like, oh well, you say you're vegan, but you wear leather. Well, I can care about animals too, and eat steak and drink milk and wear leather and wear fur and do X, Y, Z. Because it's all subjective. So, yeah, I would have to go in the agree camp on this one.
You are a better person if you were vegan. 3, 2, 1.
So I wouldn't say I'm a better person than other people in general, but me as an individual, I am a better person than I ever was before, and I guarantee that anyone who goes vegan will be a better version of themselves.
I think I'm a better person because I'm vegan, but I know vegans who are racist and homophobic, and to me, they aren't good people, I think they make good choices when it comes to what they consume.
I think to be vegan, which is why I was in somewhat disagree, because I feel like if you're racist and you're homophobic or you're an oppressor, I'd feel like that's very anti-vegan. Just in my personal opinion, I feel like vegan is an anti-discrimination, anti-oppression movement. It's really hard to be racist and be vegan. I would not consider you vegan if you're homophobic or racist or something like that, because we are animals. How can you be discriminating against humans in that form? So that's why I'm here, someone who's truly vegan, who is of those values, in my personal opinion. I don't feel like they're better, but I feel like they are a good person.
Yes. Okay, thanks for watching. No, just kidding. So I object to Nikki there because, like Tyra said, fully embracing veganism would mean that you're not discriminatory when it comes to people as well, as we are animals. So I don't know if I would call these people vegan, really. They would be vegan in the way most people usually think of vegans, but if you go a little deeper, Tyra is spot on. But I feel like this was kind of a gotcha question, like, oh, can we get the vegans to say they're better than other people? Like, let's be clear. If you have someone who decides they don't want to cause unnecessary harm and someone else doesn't care, then I have no problem in saying the former is a better person. I think we can all be better, as Richard says, by going vegan. If you change nothing else, going vegan definitely makes you a better person. Full stop.